Hello and welcome to YesterYear's Mac Games, where today we're looking at something that only just made it to archive. SkyScraper by Chris Hoyt is quite a neat Shareware title where the player takes control of base jumper Bob. Bob climbs the face of buildings with the intent of jumping off the top, free-falling for a bit, and deploying a parachute to get down safely. The residents of the building don't like this at all, and all seem to work together to, discourage the behaviour. All that's needed here are the arrow keys, so the player need only press the up button when they've located the position in which they wish to start climbing. So, up Bob scurries, avoiding closed windows, boarded and bricked up ones, as well as electrical and fire hazards. Neither Bob or the other residents seem to care about this potential catastrophe going on. The screen will gradually pan up once the climbing has commenced, giving ample time to plan a route and assess hazards. Most windows open and close, and being on top of a closed one will cause Bob to lose his grip. It's a good idea, therefore, to locate a group of windows that aren't moving and head over there to wait for the screen scrolling to catch up, somewhere that enables Bob to move side to side, while the occupants of the flats above him try and literally murder him by hurling things at his head. These seem to be everyday household objects that everyone has, that I guess are no longer of any value, like an old broken lamp, or a pot plant that never got watered, an ex-lover's bowling ball, good riddance, the TV, because who needs that, a dumbbell, which seemed like a good purchase but never got used, a great big plank of wood, everyone has one of those sat around, right, and the fish, who was probably plotting to throw their owner out anyway, best to beat it to it. If any of these make contact with Bob, a rather predictable outcome occurs, and the player loses a Bob. Luckily, there seem to be multiple identical Bobs on hand.
They're everywhere!
Enabling another attempt. It's best not to hang out too high up the screen, in case the long plank is thrown out. There's little reaction time up there, and a safe window may not be so close by. These ledges on the edges make good resting spots too. Just try not to fall off the side. Get Bob to the top of the tower,
And the crowd goes wild. Yay!
wait a few moments for the screen to catch up, and off he jumps. This is a neat little opportunity to nab some extra points. As the longer Bob free falls, the bigger the bonus. Pressing a button deploys his parachute, although leaving it too late causes him to tumble out of control to smash a hole in the pavement. Now, how do you stop an adrenaline junkie from jumping off something? Well, according to a program I watched once on base jumping into the Cave of Swallows in Mexico, one possible solution is to leave it alone. Eventually, the thrill wears a bit thin, and the thrill seeker goes elsewhere to experience something bigger. That's why all the jumpers on the program had headed into the wilderness. They were after a new fix, one bigger and heavier than they could get domestically. It would seem that none of the residents of the tower tuned into this, which makes sense actually, none of them had TVs anymore, as the README states that every time Bob completes a jump, the residents try and put him off by adding a bunch of new floors to their tower, just like that. No idea where the building materials came from. The maximum is 200, although I've barely seen a quarter of that. Nevertheless, the next tower will be bigger than the last, and Bob goes up once again. The neat thing about tower design is that it's generated by the Mac, so no two towers are going to be the same. This aids replayability, as the player isn't climbing from memory. There is something quite visually appealing about the towers that it generates, although as you can see, it doesn't scroll particularly smoothly. None of the animations have all that many frames. Weirdly, the brickwork strobes on my PowerBook's screen, although this wasn't picked up by the screen recorder, so that'll be a hardware thing. The background tune, which is playing now, is unorthodox, but there's quite a few different sound effects to keep the audio interesting. One other thing that I thought I'd mention is the game's copy protection, which is quite unique, and probably just as well because it's useless. The game has a set number of times that it can be launched, so it will count down to 0 and presumably cease to function after that. This is completely undermined through the application's Get Info screen, where it can be locked, preventing SkyScraper from writing the countdown data to itself. The scores are in a separate file, so they still work, but it ultimately feels to me like a bit of an odd choice. Most conventional options for getting people to pay Shareware fees were to simply limit features after 30 days, or add in long, tedious nag screens. I can't be sure how well SkyScraper may have done in 1999, but for sure, it missed the golden era of Macintosh Shareware by a few years, which is probably why it's only just reappeared. It found its way onto cover discs of the day, but I feel it could have made a lot more impact on the scene if it had come along around about 1995. As it stands, however, in this age of abandonware, it stacks up very nicely against other titles for the Classic MacOS, and it's definitely worth trying out. My best score has been 13,275, so that's your target. For more video content on obscure Mac Shareware, as well as some not so obscure things, check out the rest of my channel, and be sure to subscribe to avoid missing future videos. Thanks for watching then, and see you next time.